Breaking news from the California Supreme Court. An outrageous decision was just handed down that strips citizens of their rights to use ballot initiatives to hold politicians accountable. The court sided with Governor Gavin Newsom and California Democrats to block your ability to vote on tax hikes. Coming up, we'll tell you all about the corrupt decision and how we're fighting back. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California, and today I am pissed, and you should be pissed too. There is an outrageous abuse of power that has just occurred in Sacramento, in the Sacramento swamp. And by the Sacramento swamp standards, there's a lot of competition for abuse of power, but this one is just insane, absolutely insane. I've never seen something as corrupt as what I'm about to explain to you went down in Sacramento at the California Supreme Court. So let me back up and tell you what's been going on. Number one, California's taxes are high, right? We have the highest tax burden in the nation. We've created a cost of living crisis. Not we, the politicians, the left-wing tax and spend politicians have created a cost of living crisis in our state. The highest income tax, the highest sales tax, the highest property taxes, despite Prop 13, because our assessed value of homes are so high. The highest gas tax, the highest car tax. We've got massive taxes hidden in our utility bills, giving us the highest electricity rates in the nation. All sorts of illegal taxes that are disguised as fees are being charged to residents across the state. Working families are getting crushed. They can't afford it, and so they're fleeing our state. So we have a cost of living crisis driven by a number of factors, but most importantly, at the top of the list, high taxes and illegal fees. So taxpayers decided to do something about it. Reform California joined 2 years ago with a taxpayer advocacy committee made up of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, business groups, and taxpayer advocates across the state. We supported an initiative called the California Taxpayer Protection Initiative. This initiative was a citizens' initiative. We had to collect signatures to place it on the ballot. The initiative requires a public vote statewide on any tax increase so that the legislature does not have unchecked power to raise our taxes. It tightens the definition of what a tax or fee is so that we don't have illegal taxes imposed by just simply having politicians consider them fees. It also requires that when a tax increase is placed on the ballot, that there should be an honest ballot title, that the words tax increase should be contained in the title. And finally, the initiative restores a 2/3 requirement for special taxes being levied at the local level. This is something that was already in our state constitution, but the liberal courts basically made it easier for politicians in a very controversial ruling a few years ago by lowering the threshold from 2/3 to a majority vote. Again, which was not what voters actually approved decades ago, but it's what the liberal justices of the California corrupt Supreme Court, and you should be referring to it as that going forward, and I'll explain why in a moment. It's what the liberal justices of the California corrupt Supreme Court ruled a few years ago. So this taxpayer protection initiative was designed to fix a lot of loopholes, close the loopholes that have made it easier for California's reckless and extreme politicians to raise our taxes. We collected 1.4 million signatures and put it on the ballot. Now, let me just tell you right now that this is not just a fight about tax relief. This is a fight about fundamental citizens' rights. You see, in 1911, progressive Governor Hiram Johnson put forward a package of reforms to amend the state constitution to give voters the right of referenda and ballot initiative. Basically, he was saying that sometimes your legislature is bought by powerful special interests. You think? Wasn't just happening in the 1910s. It's happening today. The government union bosses, labor union bosses call the shots, and a bunch of other special corporate and liberal interests. They control everything in the legislature. What they say they get, and you, the little guy, pay the price. The only defense that we have as citizens is the right of initiative and referenda. It is when citizens get so pissed off with the corruption of their government, the extremism of politicians, the power, unchecked power of special interests, that the citizens say, we're just going to put something on the ballot and vote on it directly. Cut the damn politicians out, impose restrictions on politicians, amend our state constitution, serve as a check and balance. That's what these ballot measures are all about. That's what the initiative, the citizens' initiative process is all about. When you see a politician-backed initiative that the politicians placed on the ballot, typically it's not a good one. But when you see a citizens' initiative that was placed on the ballot through signatures, it typically is something the politicians don't want. Otherwise, they would have put it on the ballot themselves. So what I'm about to describe to you in this court ruling, this corrupt, outrageous, illegal, and unconstitutional abuse of power court ruling, is not just a setback for those of us wanting to give tax relief to Californians, much needed tax relief to Californians. It is stripping citizens of their initiative rights. It is basically subjecting citizens to the tyranny of a corrupt, broken political system with no checks and balances. It strips them of their ability to fight back by collecting signatures and putting good ideas and reforms on the ballot. It's not just about the cost of living in California. This is utterly and essentially about the health of our democracy. And our democracy suffered a major blow with this corrupt court ruling. Here is the Supreme Court ruling itself. Now, mind you, all 7 members of the California Supreme Court are liberal justices. There's not a moderate or conservative in the whole bunch. Democrat appointed, Democrat confirmed, liberal justices. And this isn't the first time they've thumbed their nose at the will of the voters. They did it to us here in San Diego on my pension reform initiative, Prop B from 2012. They overruled the initiative 8 years after voters voted for it by a 2/3 vote, a landslide victory, to do the outrageous reform of telling government workers they should have the same retirement system as the taxpayers footing the bill. Oh, the horror. Well, the government union bosses went to the California Supreme Court and said, we want you to overturn the will of the voters. Come up with any excuse, but just do it. And so the California Supreme Court lied in its opinion. They said, oh, this was not a citizens initiative. It was a government initiative. It should have been negotiated by government politicians ahead of time. Absolute falsehood. We collected over 140,000 signatures. It was not a government initiative. The entire city council opposed the initiative except for me, the author of the initiative. This is insanity. It's dishonesty. It is corruption. We spoke out about it then, and I thought, well, they trampled on our rights in San Diego. But now we have a constitutional amendment on taxpayer protection. The same method that we got Prop 13 passed by in 1978, where Howard Jarvis collected signatures, is the same method by which taxpayer protection initiative was being proposed. Signatures to place limitations on the politician's ability to raise taxes. But here's a unanimous decision of the California Supreme Court. All the liberal justices all agreed to betray their oath, to betray the people. And there's no way to describe it any other way. And I want to be very clear. I'm using some pretty hot words: corruption, abuse of power, betrayal, violation of oath, because these words absolutely fit the crime that was committed. This court has lost all of its legitimacy. Every ounce of legitimacy that it had at one point is gone. Their record going to the grave should be that they violated their oath, and trampled on the constitutional right of initiative in California. Shame. And it's time that we start labeling these people as corrupt and challenging the entire legitimacy of the Sacramento swamp system. So in this opinion, the justices said the Taxpayer Protection Initiative is so sweeping in its reform that it fundamentally alters our system of government. And therefore, instead of an initiative, a ballot initiative, that it should have been a constitutional convention because it was so sweeping in its reform. Again, let me go back to what the Taxpayer Protection Initiative does. Number one, it requires a voter approval on taxes statewide, majority vote, and it restores a 2/3 vote, which was already the practice, and it's already in the Constitution for government-sponsored initiatives at the local level. It restores that threshold of votes. All of these reforms requiring votes on taxes have been in the Constitution in one form or another since the 1870s. It's not a fundamental revision of our Constitution. It is a refinement. It is a restoration. Prop 13 did the same thing, but it wasn't considered a revision of the Constitution. It was an initiative. Prop 218, which tightened up the definition of fees and local taxes. Prop 26. All of these dealt with taxes, making refinements on the same level as the Taxpayer Protection Initiative. All of them were valid, accepted, no-brainer ballot initiatives. But here comes the corrupt California Democrat liberal Supreme Court, changing all of that, ripping up precedent, and trying to make the absolutely indefensible argument that this somehow was a redrafting of our system of government. Bitch, please. Tear up those law degrees that you have. Surrender and resign your post. This is humiliation when it comes to the rule of law. And you know it. A first-year law student would be embarrassed to author this opinion because of all the initiatives that have preceded it, establishing exactly the same precedent. You people are liars. And what you have done is broken the law. You have stripped the citizens of their rightful initiative to vote on the ballot measure. Most of the time, these initiatives that have legal questions are allowed to go to a public vote. And then any of the legal questions are addressed later on, but not in this case. No, the Supreme Court said, let's not even let the voters weigh in. Let's silence the voters in the process. Shame. An absolute weaponization of the courts against the voters and against the taxpayers to serve the masters, the politicians and their special interest funders. Now, we're not going to be nuanced about this. We're not going to be polite about it. We're going to get angry about it. And I hope you are angry because what they've done is stripped you of your voice. They're trying to silence you. They're trying to weaponize government against you, the taxpayer, and force you to pay more. You don't get a say. You get to pay. Now, what's interesting about this ruling is that while they're trying to say that making refinements to or limitations on the ability of politicians to raise taxes is somehow fundamentally a redrafting of our system of government, their decision is silent on all the other liberal reforms that have been done to our system of government in just the past 20 years. We used to have a 2/3 vote requirement to approve the state budget. The court allowed that to happen. They didn't say that was a revision to our state constitution. That's not a redraft of our constitution and a shift of our system of government. It's a profound change, lowering from 2/3 to 1 majority for the budget. Maybe taxpayers ought to sue to restore a 2/3 vote on the budget, make it harder for politicians to spend money. Or how about the 2010 redistricting scam? that gave a nonpartisan, yeah, right, commission the ability to draw lines. Well, that nonpartisan commission has always drawn partisan lines in favor of, oh, golly, surprise, the Democrats. That stripped the entire legislature of their ability to draft lines. Nothing was said about that initiative in this court case. Maybe we should file a lawsuit on that. Or how about the teachers union and Prop 98 requiring certain funding levels be adhered to by the legislature, stripping the legislature of discretion on a massive portion of the budget? Is that a rewrite of our Constitution? Does that fundamentally alter our system of government? Fundamentally alter and change the role of the legislature? Some would argue it is. Maybe groups will file lawsuits there. But look, if you're looking for fairness and equity and consistency in the application of the law, you've gone to the wrong place with the California liberal, corrupt Supreme Court. They're liars, cheats, and thieves, just like the politicians that they represent. I know that this is a hot video. I know that I am angry. I am angry. A lot of good people have put in work into this initiative. The voters are clamoring for change. Taxpayers are weary. They're getting beaten down by all the high cost of living increases driven by the high tax rates that these politicians have imposed on us. And what are they doing with the money? They're giving it to their special interest masters. They're not doing the work of the people. A colossal waste of money. Corruption. And so I urge you not to give up. I want you to channel the anger that you should have into action. You ought to fight like hell. Don't let these bullies and thieves, don't let the corrupt ones win. Don't let them silence you. There are a couple things that we do next. First, we are meeting with our coalition on redrafting the initiative and refiling it to qualify it again for 2026. We're not going away. Second, we have a November election coming up. And now that the Taxpayer Protection Initiative has been removed unlawfully and unconstitutionally from the ballot, what remains are the tax increases that the Democrats want. Oh, surprise, surprise. They have two initiatives on the ballot that would gut Prop 13, and a number of initiatives on your ballot will raise your taxes. We need to vote no on all of those tax hiking measures. We have to win the fight against the tax hikes this November. Overwhelmingly win, to rebuke and repudiate the high taxes as well as the abuse of power that we're seeing here. We are running our ballot measure campaigns to defeat the tax hikes, and we need your help. Go to the website, reformcalifornia.org, chip in a contribution to the effort. Third, we need to break the Democrat supermajority in the legislature because under the current rules, they have the ability to raise taxes without a public vote. They have a 2/3 supermajority in both chambers. We've got to break the supermajority in the state legislature. The state assembly is the easiest way to do that. We have a list of 12 winnable seats that we can pick up in November with good candidates who are literally within a few points of winning the seat. If we give them the resources they need, the support that they need to win, and they win these seats, all we need are 9 of the 12 seats, by the way. We are very close to breaking the supermajority. We can stop these increases in taxes in the legislature this time. And we can prevent them from putting constitutional amendments on the ballot. We are close to restoring balance in our state legislature, but only with your help in November. Channel that anger into action to boot these politicians out of office. All 12 of the politicians occupying the seats that we're targeting voted for the gutting of Prop 13. All 12 of them opposed the Taxpayer Protection Initiative. Let's end their political careers. Let's make this an issue in their election. This politician not only wants to raise your taxes, they want to muzzle you and silence you as a voter. Chip in at reformcalifornia.org. Finally, I want you to share the story that we've posted. It's on our website, reformcalifornia.org. It's right here, the top story. California Supreme Court removes Taxpayer Protection Initiative from the November ballot. It is so important that you help us spread the word by sharing this story. This story tells it all. And you can explain to your Democrat friends, your independent friends, even your Republican friends, that this is a miscarriage of justice. This is an abuse of power, and that they need to get in the fight. The best way for them to do that is to go to reformcalifornia.org and chip in a contribution and sign up to get our plain English voter guide in the November election. First name, last name, email, phone, and zip code. That's all it takes. Yes, I'm disappointed. Yes, I'm angry, but I'm not going to give up. I am actually fueled by my anger. It's going to make me work harder. It's going to make our volunteers work harder. I hope it inspires you to get even more involved in the fight to take back this state from corruption. Don't flee. That's what they want you to do. They want you to give up hope. They want you to say, oh, well, nothing can be done. They're always going to use brute force to silence us. They're not going to stop on taxes. You realize that, right? They're going to keep going. They're going to weaponize the courts against you on every single front. And you might say, well, I'll move to another state. The contagion will spread. The California corrupt system is simply a petri dish that they want to export across the country. Don't let them. Fight for your state, fight for your country. Go to reformcalifornia.org. Join the fight, chip in a contribution, sign up as a volunteer, make sure that you're on our list to get our voter guide. We'll give you updates on additional things that we're going to be doing to respond to this, as well as the schedule for refiling our various initiatives for 2026. But until next time, the fight continues. Carl DeMaio, Chairman of Reform California. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and smash that notification button so you can stay up to date on all the developments in California news and politics. Also, please visit the website, reformcalifornia.org, for ongoing news coverage and to join one of our campaigns in the fight to take back our state. If you can, please sign up as a volunteer or chip in a contribution. This episode of Reform California with Carl DeMaio, paid for by Carl DeMaio for State Assembly 2024.